I used to be of the opinion that if you built a road, then naturally business would follow. And pointing back to the Roman example of what happened with the Roman roads and the networks that stretched all across the empire, bringing literature and business and all of these wonderful things across these borders into these lands, this was the mythology that I had bought into. And I'm not sure at what point I picked up on it and at what point I actually believed it. And I'm not even sure at what point I stopped believing it. But I can tell you this. It seems like the constant refrain whenever I talk to somebody about how we don't need government for anything, it always comes back to, but what about the roads? As if somehow people can't figure out how to build a road if they don't have some government paying for it or studying it or regulating it or making you use a certain type of gravel for it or requiring a certain number of people be paid a certain amount of dollars to do the work on it. Well, something happened here in Alaska back in 1969, which I only recently learned about, actually. It's called the Hickle Road. Anybody ever hear of that? Well, what happened is when oil was discovered up on the North Slope, the governor of Alaska, I know it's government, right? He's like, this Governor Hickle is like, we need to build a road. And working in part with the state government and working in part with oil developers, they built a road that went up through Bettles, on up into Anaktuvuk Pass, and on onto the North Slope. Now, Anaktuvuk Pass actually makes sense geographically. It's a wide pass, gradual rise, goes right through the middle of the Brooks Range. If you look on the map and you were to say, now, where would be the most logical place to build a road? Well, there it is. It actually looks like it geographically from the air. I got a chance to see it for the first time this week. On Monday, I had an opportunity to fly up to Anaktuvuk Pass. I was actually on my way to Bettles, had lunch at Bettles, which was really fun. Anyway, I actually saw the remnants of the road with my own eyes. Now, what happened to this road, it was a crude road. It was just, they just took some bulldozers and cut a line, which, I mean, if you think about it, this is tundra that they're building the road on. It's the same kind of stuff that they built the road on, the Dalton Highway in 1974. But the reason why they had to rebuild the Dalton was because in the early 70s, Congress decided that that area should be made into wilderness and preserved for the future. Where's Congress in relation to Alaska? Anyone? Oh, yeah, that's right. It's about 3,000 miles away, roughly the same distance as the British Crown was from the colonials when they started requiring these ridiculous things like the Stamp Act and the tea, and all of the other issues that drove American colonials to the point of saying, I can't take it anymore. Well, Congress decided that that should be a wilderness area, and they took the road out. So when it was finally obvious that we absolutely needed a road in order to get this pipeline built, and if you wanted the money from the pipeline, you're going to have to gosh darn build a road. Well, they ended up pushing it through a little place called Anaktuvuk Pass, which doesn't make a lot of sense. It's a much steeper rise. It's much more treacherous, and speak to any of the truck drivers who have to drive it, not the best place to build a road. But that's where they built it, thanks to the government. So, when people say, well, what about my roads? Ask them if they know the history of the Hickle Road and how the government took the road out.